Hello everyone, this is Leslie. Welcome back to my channel. This is the whole shebang. I usually have different content, but because of the pandemic, I haven't been able to do and film some of the stuff that I used to put up. So I'm kind of filling in with things about my own life and some of the things. If you want to look down, you can see some of the kind of videos I've been doing. I hope you will consider subscribing. Today is a video that I really never thought I would do, and it was really something that what happened is I went to look at to see what day of the week it is, because we're in the middle of a pandemic. I'm not really paying attention to what day of the week it is. And I looked at the calendar, and when I looked at the calendar, I realized that the anniversary of my mother's death was coming up. And then it struck me that this year is in Sunday, in 2 days, it will be the 50th anniversary of my mother's death, which really just completely blows my mind. I can remember lying there the day she died and being overwhelmed with the thought that I would never see my mother again and never talk to her again. And I cannot believe that little girl has lived 50 years without her mother. I mean, it's just really, it's pretty overwhelming. But anyway, yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I can remember that. I don't remember a lot about my mother. I remember she was silly. I remember she used to sing Winchester Cathedral. I remember she had a lot of dresses on racks in our basement. I remember we used to throw our dirty laundry down the steps. I guess we didn't have baskets. She was a huge and avid sewer. And yeah. I can remember some things you would be shocked at how. I can remember when my children got to be the age I was when she passed away, I would always say, like, oh, of course they would remember me. He or she would remember me, because I know that I have such a great relationship with my children. But then it's not about the kind of relationship you had with them. It's just years go by and your memories fade. Anyway, I have to say that losing my mother so young was pretty difficult in 1970. Back in 1970, it was pretty much presumed, obviously not universally, that a child had both a mother and a father, and even if they weren't together, that they were both alive. And I did not. So I remember and I don't think there was another person in my whole school, elementary school. When my mother died, we suddenly moved. I started a new school. There was just a lot of upheaval. I also remember that my father, who I think probably by today's standards, people would say pretty much did everything wrong. He took all her photos down. We really never talked about it, talked about her death or her. And I think that most people would agree that it is very different now. And I have friends who have lost their spouse, and the children go into grief counseling, and it's handled very differently today. Anyway, growing up without a mother, right off the top of my head, I can remember being very, seemingly shocked by the insensitivity of people assuming that you had both a mother and a father. I've never assumed, and I can remember getting lots of odd stares when I was growing up and asking people, oh, is your mom and dad both alive, before I would talk to them. And when I would meet them, in the context of not saying, oh, your parents come up for Parents Weekend, I would say, like, oh, your mom and dad both alive? Are they both going to be here? Never really assuming that people's mom and dads were both alive, because I knew how difficult it was for me to have to answer that question with, well, my mother's not alive. So anyway, that was something I was very sensitive to. I also remember, and obviously as a girl, I was raised by my father, and my father was raised by his father, and my father was a very unemotional and not very loving person. And I can tell you, I was never told that I was loved. No one ever said those words to me till I was much older. And that is something it's just an odd feeling to even say that now, because I say to my children so many times a day, to have a person in your house who you never say that to is just shocking to me, a child. But anyway, you know, as a young girl who doesn't have a mother, obviously there were so many things I missed out on, and that was having that person to talk to about periods, getting a bra, talking about boyfriends, talking about guidance with friendships, and where should I go to college. And as silly as this sounds, I remember that a lot of my friends, mothers would take them shopping. First of all, A, we didn't have the money, but second of all, just even the thought, and even though I'm not really a shopper, and that's probably why, I know that there are times when I pull myself together and go shopping with my daughter, only because I know that it's important to her, and that it's something I do want to, I don't want her not to experience that. Anyway, I will say that, of course, you know, when I met my husband and we got married, I did my wedding all by myself, because I didn't have a mother to help me with any of the details. That's just the way it was. However, of course, the most important, I remember when I was growing up, when my friends would complain about their mothers, oh, my mother did this, or my mother did that, or my mother's such a pain in the rear end, she, whatever. I just remember silently, I don't think I ever said it out loud, remember thinking, you're so lucky you have a mother. Like, someone who will ground you, you know, or someone who cares enough, or just someone to talk to. And I remember so many times they would say, like, oh, my mother told me, don't worry about XYZ. And I would try to take in as much of that motherly advice because I wasn't getting any of it myself. Anyway, I obviously remember when I was pregnant was the first time, and this was one of the things that I can remember, and it was how ingrained the fact that I was lacking a mother in my life. At one of my husband and I went to a child preparation class, and the person facilitating it said, mom's on the right, dad's on the left, come up here, moms, and come up here, dads. And my first thought was, I can't believe people brought their mothers to this. Like, of course I don't have a mother. And then I realized they were talking about me. I was the mom. And then first my son was born, and then my daughter was born next. And I can remember, it may have been at her christening, looking down at her and thinking, wow, I have a mother-daughter relationship with someone, like, because I had never had that. I know friends of mine who have all boys, and they say they're okay because I told them that this, and they were like, yeah, well, I have such a strong relationship with my mother. I'm not missing that mother-daughter relationship. And you miss having a mother-daughter relationship when your mother passes away so young. I will say, I could not do this video without mentioning people by name. There were so many wonderful mothers of my friends or friends' mothers who stepped in to help. Mrs. Kaplan, I wrote them down. Mrs. Hom, Mrs. Shoemaker, Mrs. Cooney, Mr. and Mrs. Hitchings, Mr. and Mrs. Dr. and Mrs. Lenker. And if I'm missing anyone, please let me know. I apologize. There were so many people who stepped in to help. When I had my daughter, my Aunt Phyllis stepped in, and she helped, and in so many ways became like a surrogate grandmother to my children, especially my daughter, Anna. On the positive side of this, I have raised my children in such a different way than maybe I would have. I am so conscious that every single moment with them is such a gift, and that I have told them all every single day that I love them. As someone who was never told that, as I said, I'm very conscious of saying that all the time. And throughout their lives, at different points of their lives, I've tried to emphasize the value of me and them, so that if anything were to happen to me, they would know how long-lasting that would be. I really didn't think I was going to cry, but anyway. And people ask me, who don't say, oh, I love you a lot to their kids. I have a friend who says she doesn't say it a lot. And she says she feels like it diminishes the value of it, because when she does say it, it means a lot. And I said, no, that's not the way that works. You can never say that enough. So, yeah, I mean, that's it. You know, I am, yeah, growing up without a mother is really not easy. And it is easy because I noticed there was a girl who lost her father recently on the news, and people said, I'm going to be there for her. I'm going to step up. There were people who managed to do that despite my father. Yeah, I don't want to say too much. I didn't think I was going to say what I said, but I just want my children to know that if for any reason I'm not there for them when they are raising their children, there are ways, and hopefully the lessons that I've taught them and the way that I've showed them all the things that I do every day, they will be able to know that I'm there, whether it's a little thing that comes back to them. So weird. My mother drove a Dodge Dart. I can remember that. I don't even know. I know they don't make them, but she ate wintergreen Lifesavers. And and I don't really eat wintergreen Lifesavers, but every time if someone hands me one or if there's one in a bowl and I'm not even thinking about it, and I put that in my mouth, I instantly go to her. And a friend of mine drove a Dodge Dart, and every time he said something about his Dodge Dart, this was in college, I thought of her, you know. Her name was Ursula. I thought about naming my my first daughter's middle name as Ursula. Unfortunately, Ursula is the big mean beast in Little Mermaid, so I could not do that. But that's it. Her name was Ursula, and she was my mom. So, okay. Thank you so much for watching today. I really didn't think I was going to cry like this, but it is. I can remember at various times, you know, if you go too far down that road, you're going to start to cry, because it's just a sad thing to go out without a mother. I'm sorry if this is content that you're uncomfortable with or that you didn't want to and you got here. Thank you so much for watching this. If you grew up with a mother, please let me know in the comments, and thank you so much for watching this today. This is really for Jack, Anna, Timmy, Matthew, and Lily. I love you so much.